Hey, hey, this is Esme Raphael, and I am finally putting together videos on how to read any deck at all. I have been reading cards since I'm very young and been doing it professionally, I don't know, probably 20 years, maybe more, deck, and we'll be using that for this demonstration. First thing to do when you buy a deck of cards is to get to know it and to play with them and to really integrate the imagery for yourself. The secret behind instinctual divination is knowing that the language that you have is the language that will come through in your reading. Everything you've come to know about yourself and everything you've ever learned or enjoyed as entertainment or any kind of expression. Um, for myself, a lot of times the messages come like little cartoons because when I was little, I used to watch Warner Brothers all the time. So that's one of the ways I receive messages is through cartoon characters. Um, Not very sophisticated, but very funny. Um, When I pull cards, many times it comes as videos or images or blocks of images. So the language that you are going to start to develop in this new project that you're undertaking, which I wholeheartedly support, uh, is your own language. And to start to get secure about the interpretation of this language as a real message is probably the part that stops people from really doing their own card reading. I would suggest that you start with the deck in order and start with whichever suit that seems most relevant to you. Right now, I have my own deck, and this is the relationship card. I don't know if you can see that too well. Let's see. This is the first card. It's called Void. And there are four words on the card. One is zero, the other is relationship, which is the suit. And then maybe I should turn that upside down, right side up for you. The word liberation. Um, we're starting with the suit relationship, and we're probably going to go through each card within this suit, just to give you a feeling of how to interact with your own deck. This is mine, and I'd love to be able to publish it. So any readings that come from this video will be a donation towards the publication. And there's so many different kinds of readings with different costs, but that can be something that we engage through private emails. All donations will be going towards the publication of the deck. Um, so let's just take a look at our first card, which I already showed you. It is, it depends when you pull the card, what words on top is the focus of that card for you. Each side has its own strength. When you pull the card, there's no upside down like in regular tarot cards. There's just strength in meaning depending on what's on top. I found that the one on the bottom is usually the least strong, not necessarily all the time. It's always in relationship with the other cards, but since we're only working with one card at a time, I'll talk a little bit about this card and the interactions I have with it. The picture speaks to me as much a void as can be depicted in color and form. The void is always the place of beginning, of nurturing, of planting the seed in the earth. Um, the void can feel somewhat chaotic to people because there's the beginning of things can be very blank, um, indecisive, unclear. But in that place of unclarity, you start to ask questions about what you would like to be clear about. It's really a wonderful time of germination, of fine tuning what the questions are that you want to ask. Um, Sometimes people come to a reading and they don't have any questions. But as we sit and pull cards, it, it's as if, actually, I know it's for sure, their I am presence is giving them a message for some more clarity about something that maybe they've put on the back burner for a while, and or maybe it's too emotional to look at, or unsettling at this time in their life. But their I am presence is always in a place of, hi, kitty. Um, of course, my cat's here because every divination person has to have a cat. No, I'm joking. um, my familiar. You gonna help me read? All right. Well then, thank you. In spirit, she's helping us read. Um, so the clarity comes in the openness and the willingness to receive the messages. So always during the beginning of a reading, I ask permission from the individual's I am presence to receive messages. Now, for my interaction with this card and my experience with being in that place of the void, then I am comfortable with that. How do you become comfortable with this place of the void? Like, how do you become comfortable with not knowing what the next thing is and to find a place of ease and grace? Um, the more you're involved with that feeling, the more you just accept that that's part of being human. These transitions can be easy or hard depending on what you'd like to focus on. So if you're feeling uncomfortable with it, definitely a time not to focus on how uncomfortable you are, but to bring yourself to a place of finding your joy, doing things that you um, are good at, uh, maybe just enjoying entertainment, music, dance, yoga, so many things just to distract you from a feeling of not knowing. Because the void is that place. It's a place of also of the womb, of the beginning of the creation. It can be feeling like a very warm place as well, very comforting to know that it's the beginning, not the end. I don't know, like as humans, we kind of have a problem with the endings of things, but always the ending means the beginning. So it always depends on your perspective, right? Um, so one of the words on this card is liberation. And liberation and void, right? The freedom of being able to choose, the freedom of a beginning, a new beginning, um, relationship to self, relationship to what you, who you thought you were, who you've created. Can you create somebody new? Of course, always, every day, you can create a new you. Zero is also significant because it is um, full circle. It is number of like a hug from source. Um, Zero is very important. It holds space. So your relationship to yourself, your own ability to find liberation in this time of maybe not clear, but change, lots of change. And how can you find that you're being supported and hugged and held in this place? Here we have number one. I'm going to see if this works for you. Here we go. Oops, it's upside down. Haha. So we have one on the top, beginning, gratitude, and of course the suit on the bottom, relationship. Let's take a look at that picture. So we have a family, city, and trees. So one is definitely a much more progressive step than zero. It means you made up your mind about something and it's time. How that feels, all the nuances of your now choice, of the choice that you've now made, may not be very clear. But how can you find a place of feeling really good about it, feeling hopeful in this suit of relationship? Um, this can also mean finding gratitude within your familiar, closer contacts. It doesn't necessarily mean family, but it can. Sometimes family relationships hold too much garbage. There's always a lot of love there, but the way that society has put families together, it can be an anxious and uncomfortable relationship. So not necessarily those relationships, um, although you can always find gratitude for certain aspects of any relationship. So since we're on this theme of finding a choice and being comfortable with it in the relationship to others, how are you, let's say you've made a choice to be more understanding and more compassionate. Um, Initially, the only place to start doing that is for yourself. How can you be much more compassionate to yourself in this um, human life that you've chosen? How can you be more gentle and celebrate the things that you've chosen? Um, the definition of success in the world, a successful relationship, um, is not the same as the definition from your higher self or I am presence. Every interaction you have, every relationship you have is a success because it brings you clarity. It brings you closer to understanding who you are. And that's all this really is about. How are you in this physical form interacting in the world? Each person holds a mirror up. And how can you find love and compassion for everyone so that you can also feel it for yourself, or vice versa, feel it for yourself so you can feel it for others? Kind of goes around in circles. You can't really break that. I feel like the strongest part of this card is definitely the word gratitude. Uh, it's sometimes difficult to find gratitude for relationships that are trying, but there's always aspects in there that you're, thanks for being a pain in the butt. Now I know how to make boundaries, be a little creative with that. The dynamics within a family are always something to be tweaked and enjoyed for the variety. And finding more compassion can always just make those bonds so much easier to be with, and uh, allowing each person the opportunity to express themselves, um, and yourself. Don't forget yourself, because I think a lot of times that is the case. Your voice is most important for you, and you are really valuable. Your perspective here is honed by your higher self, and only received in the shades of love. So no matter what you're feeling and what you're going through, it's received in its pure form. I'm going off on a tangent. We're going to go to the next card. I think we might only do one more card. I am going quite too many voids, lots of voids. I am talking too much. Okay, so let's see if I can get this picture going the right way. Oh, it's this way. Okay, great. So here's our next card. And again, it's relationship. We have the word mirror and action and the number 2. The progression from 0 to 1 to 2, right? So 0, you had darkness, maybe unclear, or just waiting and gestating. It depends on how you feel about the womb um, ideology. And then 1, you kind of have an idea. You kind of have an idea about a new way, a different way. And 2, you're definitely moving forward. Are you necessarily in a card reading going to pull them in order? No, not at all. This is just a general overview on how to interpret the cards, and allow your imagination to help understand how you feel about these things. Because in essence, it's only how you feel that makes any interpretation of any interaction real. So the cards are going to evoke some emotional response. And it could be words, could be the picture, could be the colors. Of course, numbers. Numbers are always different for everybody. In this card, we also have the word mirror. Now, in the number 2, we could take that mirror to seem more like you looking in your own mirror, and then there's 2 of you, and how you feel about you. Then there's also, in relationship, you and another person. And what is that mirror? Because each person mirrors you. And how can you be really compassionate towards another being, especially when it seems like they're not behaving? How is it in those places of judgment? Can you realize and internalize this mirror opportunity to look at yourself and how you are in judgment towards you? Anytime there's judgment and criticism, you're just creating separation because, in essence, we are all mirroring each other. This is kind of a crazy concept and difficult for a lot of people to embrace. Might be something interesting to look at. But these are part of the thought process of the card and what it evokes for me. Why does it evoke all of these other issues? Because this is what I know. This is what I've learned. This is what I've studied. When I pull a card and let's say it's before the person, they may have a very different interaction with the words. And it's valid, and it adds to the meaning for them. The meaning for you might be extremely clear and simple as soon as you pull the card, because there's no other person to help interpret. Like when I'm reading for somebody else, I really stretch the meaning, the vision that I've got, the feeling, the emotion, just because I don't know what words will really trigger that feeling in that other person, no matter how well I know them or not. So I try to, like I've done with these cards in this video, I try to paint many different versions of the theme or the feeling of the card, so that maybe in that there's some interpretation that I've reached for that speaks to the other person. More often than not, there will be a response. In the years of reading, there's always been those places of doubting what I'm seeing or hearing in my own connection. The more insistent they are, the messages are, I realize it's important for the other person and has nothing to do with what I think makes sense. And I end up telling the person I'm reading, my client, what I'm seeing and feeling, and it's usually extremely significant to them, even if it doesn't make any sense to me. And that's a big part of reading cards. You have to get yourself out of the way and really be a vessel. And in those moments of being a vessel, there's this wonderful clarity, and invariably I receive as much gift in doing the reading as the person who receives the reading. It's again that mirror experience where the person asking the query, searching, usually has an element of my own search, and it becomes this really beautiful co-creative space. Where it's mutually supported. And how else is it in humanity that we have more beautiful moments? Never. Never. This is what we've come for, and to enjoy each other in these moments where we're willing to be vulnerable, and allow and be receptive. Those are the gifts of being here. All right, let's pull another card. I guess I could talk about the picture. So when I interpret this picture, it really feels like play. It feels like, how can you be less judgmental and critical with the humans in your life and play more and enjoy the differences that we all bring to the table, and play ourselves? Like, how are you too rigid in your own expression of who you are? How can you wake up one morning and decide, I'm going to mismatch my socks? I mean, that's not a big deal. But it is a little more playful if you're very rigid and you have certain ways of doing things all the time, change it up a bit. See if you can have a different interaction with the person in the corner store who you always buy your beverage for the day. I don't know. What are you doing? Being more playful. Yeah, that's how I interpret that. And that's only for this video. When I'm in relationship with a client, this may mean something really different, but that's always because I'm in relationship with a client. And since there's no one here but me and my cat, this is my interpretation of the image, um, definitely through my own filter. Like I said in the beginning, there's no way for me to deliver channel messages without my filter because that's who I am. That's I'm embodying this human form, and through my experience, yet again, and all the things that I know and done and read and wrote and whatever else I did, um, my expressions, where I grew up, these all influence how the cards are being read and the interpretation that I can offer. Any card readers will tell you that not every client matches, it's a match. Not everybody's going to want to get a card reading from the same person. Um, and that's got to be okay too. I feel like everybody's drawn to different people at different times. Um, and no two card readers are alike. So it's not a fixed science, and it's very intuitive. And just to really allow whatever it is that you're feeling, don't second guess it. What you can do also when you're doing your single card read every day is do a little journaling, like what are the feelings you're having, any kind of visual impressions, or anything significant in the picture that feels like, oh, this is wherever your eyes are drawn to on the card. You may have an image of a person or a flower or what is it? Oh, I'm just looking at the dark spot on this. I don't even know why. There's been times where there was an image on the card, and then I remember this one time there was a there was like a cloth in it, but it wasn't significant in the picture, but I couldn't get my eyes off it. So I started talking to this person about textiles, and it turns out she was interested in developing her own clothing line, and I was like, okay, that was pretty weird. So it's just that kind of thing, like whatever seems significant to you at that time, just give it a little jot and maybe develop it. Like if it feels like, oh yeah, I'm thinking this flower reminds me of my mother. My mother had a garden. It had, there's always a trail somewhere where your higher self is trying to feed you some information. And don't second guess. I know I've said this a gazillion times, but you got to just go with it and trust that your feelings and your attention to whatever detail that's coming out on the card, whether it's a word, a number, or an image, that is significant for you to investigate further. Okay, here we go. We got number 3. Let's see if I can get this picture right. Yeah. Okay, so we have number 3. We have energy, coherence, and relationship. And if you look at the card, it's kind of cool. The guy's hanging from a tree on the top of the world or something. We have to thank my artist, Adine Gold, for her beautiful imageries. And she has a website, adinegold.com. And you can go and see some more of her things. She and I have been in cahoots for a while. So back to this card. So here again, my interactions with the words and the imagery. This is without a client. This is just me talking about how I feel about this card. I feel like the person hanging from the tree, being in red, um, could seem like it was kind of hanging perilously off a tree. But honestly, I don't get that feeling from it. I'm feeling like, woohoo, I'm on top of the world and swinging from a tree. Yay! But maybe I've just had a really good day. That does make a big difference. Um, Coherence and energy. These words are very significant to me. Again, I wrote the card deck, so they do have meaning to me, um, that's deeper than just a definition. Um, Energetic coherence means finding ways to connect to your higher self. Where are the ways? How do you do that? There's so many ways to do that. Artists paint. Runners love running because they get that really clear head and really inspired, and then they start making different choices in their life. Any kind of repetitive movement, yoga, of course. Many people have felt that releases any blocks, and they're able to move forward into a really clear state. Meditation. Sometimes people are good at that. Sitting still and thinking nothing is not really easy for humans. Um, with practice, can get you into that really clear space. I've recently started doing yoga nidra because it helps me to relax and get into that blank space with something for my mind to do, so that it's not so much on me to stop my thoughts or to ignore them and let them keep going. It also depends on the kind of day I've had and the stress. So during the holidays, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to stop thinking because the list of crap you got to do is really long. So I find the yoga nidra, which also you can find on YouTube, guided meditations of different lengths. I usually just end up with a 20-minute snooze. But then when I wake up, I feel so much clearer about what to do next and more relaxed and calm. That energetic coherence helps those places, those times where you feel overwhelmed or unclear on what to do now. Um, if anything, it's nice. It's a really good gift for yourself. It does take some practice and diligence, just like reading cards. It can be a really fun thing for you to do to expand your vocabulary with your higher self. I find it's been quite a number of years where now the vocabulary that we share is vast, and there's not so many hiccups, and I'm not so confused by the imagery as much as, oh, I remember that. That makes sense. So there's a security in knowing what is being transmitted to me energetically only because I've practiced for a really long time. And it's like anything else you practice, you get really good at it. So whether you've been doing this for a really long time or you're brand new at it, it's something to do on a daily basis for yourself because it gives you an opportunity to have that energetic coherence. And there's nothing more, no bigger gift. There's just no bigger gift to you on your everyday. Just thinking about it makes me feel good. So then we also have the relationship, coherence, energy. Right. So basically, we've been talking about relationship to self and energy and coherence, but there's always the relationship to the world and or nature. And this I get from the looking at the picture, right? Because in the picture, let's take a look at that again. We have a picture of a tree, nature, and the world, underneath. And then, of course, that black vast space, I would also interpret that as universal or multiverse energies, and finding that coherence within all of those things are always abundantly available to you if you're willing to let go of your guard a little and start to receive. Um, yeah, that feels really good. I feel really good. This feels good. Okay, so here is our next card. Trying to make sure my picture's straight. And we have number 4, form, growth, and so again, we're in the relationship deck, and it definitely looks like two humans interacting in the swirl of light, both kneeling to. It signifies to me in reverence to each other. Not one is taller than the other; they're both equal. Um, and both engaging willingly. So, um, growth and form. So again, if you look at where we've come with our numbers and our cards, we have our 0, which was kind of an incubation period, right? Our 1, which is some more clarity and a little beginning on something new in relationships, either with self or with others. And then we had 2, that mirror experience. We have 3, that energy coherence and how important that is for yourself and for your relationship to the world and um, the multiverse, your guides, good stuff. So here we have now the growth of the development of all of these things. So you start to put together the movement of more. As the numbers are going up, you start to have more complexity added to the development of maybe the question or the definition of relationship. Because when you think of relationship, oh my, that can be kind of a complicated aspect, even if you're just talking relationship to self. How do you identify with yourself now? How about now? How about now? How about now? Every moment there's a new opportunity for more clarity for yourself, defining yourself. So then once you put yourself in, let's say, a group, maybe you don't know anybody in the group. So there's not too much to do, but there is a lot of mirroring. And then what if that group is your family? Oh, well, there we go. That's a whole bunch of stuff right there. So my feeling about this card and the interaction I have with it is a more solid base. Like 4 is like a square or a cube. Like you've made up your mind about um, feeling good or sure or clear about an interaction. And the 4 also signifies connection to um, your angelic self or your angels who are communicating with you. The feeling of this solid base gives the impetus to, you can build more. You must have a solid base in order to build a house. And this is what this signifies to me when you say for and form and growth. It feels very, very expansive. And I went over the imagery with you about interaction. In this picture, I really feel like it's a development of the energy between the two people in the picture. So again, I'm just demonstrating to you my interpretation of the image, my feelings of the words and the cards, and more often than not, it changes when I'm in company with another person who's asked something. And always, always, 100% of the time, pulling the cards, they interact with each other to create a longer, more intricate answer to the question. It's kind of, maybe in another video I'll do an actual 3-card read and explain what that means. But just like I said, like when we go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're building a concept. It's not just individual cards, but now we almost have a little story. Yeah, that's what that feels like. Okay, so here we have our number 5. Here's our number 5. Okay, it has the word mantra, antenna, and relationship. So in the imagery of the card, we have 2 humans not necessarily standing together, but in the same space. I wouldn't even say they're almost doing the same action, but not quite. So they're very individual in their space here, which just interprets for me the individual mantra of each person creates a synergy while interacting with others, where your mantras kind of come together. It's like an energetic, repetitive mode that you're in. Like if you're super happy, most likely super happy people are going to be attracted to you. If you're kind of bummed and doing a lot of complaining, well, you're going to get a lot of bummed, a lot of complaining people hanging about you. But it's also about being individual within that, and enjoying that individuality. To be in relationship with someone and still honor your own expression, still honor your own path. That's the epitome of a joyous, co-creative space that we have come here to play with. The word antenna goes along with the same idea as what I was saying, is that we each have our own rhythm or vibration that we bring out to others, and it's picked up by other receivers. And the number 5 is kind of this wonderful number of change. So we had this number 4 where we have a firm foundation, and now we're kind of developing this firm and willing to be more adventurous in our. Now that we have a firm foundation, we can go out in the world and figure out how it is to interact with other people, um, put our antennas up, and see who's proceeding. Oh my god, that sounded crazy. But yeah, what you're saying to yourself is your vibration, and to always remember how powerful you are. What are you saying to yourself? I'm going to sign off now. I appreciate your time. And we will do this again. Um, I will put down the link soon about how to get in touch with me, donate for the publication of the cards so that you guys can have your own deck. But again, any deck will do to understand how to make this work for you. And I wish you the best and have so much fun with it, because any time you spend with yourself is good times. Good times. You're very important. All your perspectives, mostly for yourself. You don't have to share them with anybody. Light and love.